Class, this is Trey Strube, and this is my presentation of my final project. My research question is, how does the improper disposal of household hazardous material affect Florida residents? Let's get started. For my literature review, household hazardous material is not regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency. Prior to the Water Quality Assurance Act of 1983, there was no regulation regarding groundwater contamination in the entire state. The state did not have a single commercially licensed recycle facility in 1983 when that act was passed. The state uses voluntary county-by-county disposal programs for household hazardous waste. Research on the topic is largely outdated and has not been studied since the 1980s. Data for the study. An expert interview and survey will be conducted utilizing a mixed method approach to gain data on community engagement, participation, health risks, and potential improvements to hazmat material disposal. A descriptive research design will be used for the study to collect both quantitative and qualitative data. This data will be helpful in determining the progress made in the state since the Water Quality Assurance Act. It will provide an estimate of household hazmat generated, the prevalence of health issues related to household hazmat, and will provide feedback on how the programs can be improved. Expert interview. I selected Sean Hamilton. He is the Secretary of the Florida Environmental Protection Agency. He has over 20 years experience in the public and private sectors, and he's been working for the Florida Environmental Protection Agency since 2007. The interview would take place at the Florida EPA office in Tallahassee. For my interview protocol, the introduction would be, hello, Mr. Hamilton. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I am researching the effects of improper household hazmat disposal in the state and how community participation has changed since the Water Quality Assurance Act was implemented. I have 8 questions for you regarding this topic and should not take more than a half hour of your time. I appreciate you emailing me the informed consent form. Do you have any questions for me before we begin? My opening question would be broad. I would ask him if he could tell me more about the duties he has as the Secretary of the Florida EPA. For content questions, I'd start with, what are your thoughts on community engagement programs for household hazmat material disposal? How can we increase community participation in household hazmat disposal programs? Do you think there's a need for more regulation of household hazmat material? I would also ask him if there's a particular threshold of the hazardous material generated that would warrant enforcement. Does the state EPA promote community engagement programs or manufacturer take-back programs for electronics and appliances that contain hazardous materials? Can you tell us more about some of the effects of improper storage and disposal of household hazmat in the state? I would ask him who I can contact next to learn more about household disposal programs. My closing instructions would be, it was a pleasure to meet you, and I greatly appreciate your time today, Mr. Hamilton. Thank you for the work you do for the state. As a public policy student, it was a great experience to meet with someone in the field. I want to let you know that our meeting will remain confidential. Would it be okay if I followed up with an email of the abstract of my study? And finally, I'd ask if there's any other questions for me before we conclude my survey. So to start, I would provide definitions on some of the wording that we're going to use, like what exactly is household hazardous material and what exactly is e-recycling. The survey is going to be a mail-in survey with a prepaid return letter. The sample will be generated using a multi-stage cluster sampling method of homesteaded property owners from Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough County. Based on the population of just over 3 million, our sample size is going to be 385 based on a 95% confidence level. For my survey questions, number 1 would ask them how many times they visit a local recycle center annually, and these would be based on a Likert scale for responses on these questions. My second question would be, how often do you participate in e-recycling or manufacturer take-back programs for electronics annually? The rest of my questions, it would be, how many pounds of household hazardous material would you estimate your household generates in 1 year? How many times has someone in your household been injured or have a medical problem due to household hazardous material? I'd ask them if transportation or accessibility to and from recycle centers is a factor for them, because some counties have many more locations than others. I would ask them how likely they are to participate in a household hazardous material pickup program conducted by their county. I asked them how many times have you received information on local household hazmat collection programs or amnesty days programs in the past year, and that would include through regular mail and email. And lastly, I would ask them what incentives or improvements in hazmat disposal can be made to increase their participation and to explain. And that is the end of my project class. Thank you very much.